everybody. Welcome to today's presentation on DBArtisan. This is one of a reoccurring webcast for the Power Studio products, and DBArtisan is today's focus. All the lines are on mute, but there are GoToWebinar dialog boxes. If you have a question, you can submit those. This is only a 30-minute presentation, so it'll move quickly. We can try to answer questions towards the end, or we'll follow up through the email that you logged in with. Okay, so you should be able to see my full environment. Right now we're on the home page for DBArtisan, and this is very easy to get to from the IDERA homepage. So from the products drill down, you can drill down into Power Studio, and there you'll see the drill down page for DBArtisan. So DBArtisan is a standalone tool, very well known and mature in the marketplace. And then it's part of a bundle called DB Power Studio. So this webinar series is covering different products in the Power Studio bundle, and then also look for a series of videos posted to the IDERA YouTube channel on maybe smaller portions of areas, for example, in DBArtisan that we'll look at today. Okay, so there's some helpful resources here that we'll cover, and then just to introduce DBArtisan for those of you that might be seeing it for the first time. DBArtisan is a productivity tool for DBAs, or database administrators, that's cross-platform, very vibrant, colorful, and robust. Very mature technology, proven technology for over 20, 25 years now in this market space. So there have been different database platforms added, and there's details on those in some of the homepage drill downs. So the areas we'll cover for today's presentation are listed here, this sort of top 5. I have a few slides to dive into, maybe to use as an anchor. And then here's also a web welcome page within the products. And so there's different menus that you can invoke. And so from the view menu, you can open this welcome page. And I like to show that as a starting point. So look for new version 17.1 later on this portion of the year. And then there's some hyperlinks here that are helpful. Just what databases were you most recently using in DBArtisan? Maybe get back to those with the naming convention you recognize. Here are some starting point tutorials. And then again, here's this top 5 area that we'll look at. So once again, DBArtisan has an intuitive name with the DBA, right, as the first 3 letters. But nowadays, a lot of us wear multiple hats. So, if you have DBA permissions in a certain environment, DBArtisan will be very beneficial for you. So these are some of the highlight or benefits that we'll focus on. And first of all, cross-platform support, right, which leads to saving time and effort between managing different environments. And then also can help you become more well-rounded in terms of learning how to use DBArtisan in a certain database environment. Then you can help out with another platform maybe you're not as familiar with, just because you know how to use DBArtisan effectively and proactively. So we'll focus on maybe just some navigation areas, how I set up my user interface, how to navigate the trees and double click or right click, and then introduce some of these, what we say, dynamic menus. One of the great things about DBArtisan is it's intelligent enough to know when you're in a certain database environment. And so the browse object editors, for example, will list the SQL Server object types when you're connected to SQL Server. It will list the Oracle object types when you're connected to Oracle. So we'll introduce how to manage the cross-platform support, and then dive into some of the exciting areas, right? And so for DBAs, there's advanced analyst drill downs in the navigation tree. You'll see the analyst drill downs, and those provide proactive management for looking at bottlenecks, space issues, performance issues, right, session bottlenecks, and then you can take action, right? So proactive, right, try to be ahead of the problems instead of just being reactive. So those are areas we'll talk about, the analyst drill downs. The middle portion there, just easy to find. You have choices, right? You can drive from a menu, you can drive from those analyst areas, or you'll have your favorite tabs that you'll just have open and revisit. And then there's areas like alerting and ways of using the intelligent diagnostics to find things even more quickly or be notified. If you are in more of a development DBA environment, right? Maybe you're managing objects or migrating data, cloning objects, documenting. There's very powerful utilities. And so when we talk about move schema data in the utilities drill down, you'll see some of those areas where you have migration wizards and publication wizards. And these are powerful and proven and then repeatable. And so you'll be able to save time by having some of these wizards set up, and you can reopen those, and then there's different repositories. So migrating objects, data, publicating HTML reports, maybe saving yourself some phone calls for people that are asking what's out there. And then user management, right? So the security drill down in the navigation tree will vary per platform, right? And so for Oracle, you'll see your roles. And so for SQL Server, you'll see your logins, and just cloning those and getting down to the DDL and documenting those. Those are all strong areas in DBArtisan. Okay, so that's a bit of a template or foundation. Here's just a screenshot showing, or a slide rather, the updated platforms. So we continue to maintain support and add, or adopt different features that the customer base is looking for in these platforms, right? And so there's maybe varying functionality depending on these platforms. Obviously, we do the most for SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, Sybase, the original platforms for DBArtisan. Then we've added some of the open source, Postgres and MySQL. I was exploring SQL Azure recently, and so IDERA has a very strong foundation in SQL Server tools and SQL Azure tools, and so it's nice to have that cross experience functionality here in DBArtisan. And then there's some other tools that can be bundled with DBArtisan. We'll table talking about those, but if you hear Power Studio mentioned, that's DBArtisan with some other tools. And so Rapid SQL is another tool you may hear of. And so that's Power Studio with Rapid SQL and other tools. So there's DBArtisan DBA edition, which is called DB Power Studio for the DBAs, and that includes DBArtisan. Okay, so let's focus on these areas here. I'll maximize my screen, and you can see the different choices you have in layout. Sometimes I don't like to start with options, but let me just start in this example with one option I changed right away just because of choice is moving the tabs to the top. And so right away, if you download and install the tabs that we're seeing here across, those would be on the lower portion of the screen. So it's on the first page of options. Maybe I'll share that as a starting point. And then, even just look on the left there, you can see there's just years and pages of experience of options of customer choices. So very customizable user interface, but with our limited time here, we'll just focus on using the tool a little more rather than too much on the options. So here's the welcome page, but really you'll get started here on the left-hand side with the data source navigator. And this is how you build your navigation tree. So you have different folders and ways of creating the look and feel of your tree. So new would just be a new folder, but register would step you through an easy to use wizard for connecting to these different platforms that DBArtisan supports. So we have platform support for this range of products and database vendors, and then as you step through, you'll see the wizard interface will change, and so you can see there's built-in intelligence here for that platform, right? So for SQL Server, it'll start asking for the host name, what's your user password information. If I was to choose Oracle, then you'll see things like the SID, Oracle SID, or service name instance. So this is right away, you can see utilities here that are customized for that platform that make DBArtisan and the Power Studio tools easy to use, and you can see the experience behind this. And then you can migrate these, right? You can export these if you move to a new machine or you had colleagues that you wanted to help jumpstart. They just need to enter user password. So those are easy utilities within some of the menus. And then you can explore, right? So you have different ways of driving the tree. And so here, just to show a range of environments I'm connected to, you can see on the top portion, just a parent list, and then you can navigate and choose a platform from here. Here, maybe just to show some of the differences in SQL Server, I'll drill down, I see filters, so you can filter certain objects just to see your databases or environments. But then you'll see databases, for example, in the SQL Server environment, you'll see schema in the Oracle or DB2 environment, right? So customizations for that platform vendor that makes sense. And then this is almost a dockable where you can see the pin or unpin capabilities for the database navigator. So you have the flexibility if you'd like to leave this remaining or not, because then there is another tree view called the Explorer. And so the Explorer is similar, but has more drill down activity. So I tend to leave them both out during demonstrations, but you'll see I'll drive more from this Explorer view, right? But they show the same information, but the Explorer has more of a drill down area capabilities. So you have that choice and overlap, but as I click on different tabs here, I do like to leave the navigator just to show the scope of where I'm connected and the cross-platform support for DBArtisan. Okay, so again, from here you can drill down in the Explorer view, and then we'll dive further into some of those examples here. But these are some areas that make using DBArtisan very popular, right? So maybe I just want to get into certain tables, right? I just drill into the table, I see my list of objects. So if I highlight the list of objects here, then that populates on the right-hand side, right? So maybe I just want to get down to my tables, just click tables, I see a list of tables. So here's a small investment broker database I have with some client broker tables, some stock funds. So if I just double click on one of these tables, boom, that brings me into the details for this table. And so sometimes that's what users are looking for, right? I just want to see the structure or these tabs, right? So here's the columns tab, here's the DDL tab, rapid SQL, or maybe I'm a DBA that wants to just get to the data. This is a popular area that looks the same in rapid SQL or DBArtisan, where I just go to the data tab and then boom, I can see my data there. Maybe I need to take action on my data. I wanted to export this or send this to somebody or generate statements, right? So easy to use features for object management, just going from the Explorer, drilling down to my objects, double clicking on an object, right? So if I was to do that in a different environment here, for example, if I was in, say, Oracle, you'd still have that same capability, right? So Oracle, I could drill into my schemas, highlight my schema, and then drill into my tables, and then see my tables here, and then just double click on a table, and similar look and feel. Here's an Oracle environment where this table is now in Oracle. I see my Oracle table space. I can double click or see information there, and then get down to the details for that table in Oracle, right? So similar look and feel and user interface, which makes DBArtisan productive and easy to use, and you have that capability across different platforms, and then you have time saving because of that as well. Okay, so depending on what platform you're using and maybe what level of requirements you have, you'll notice there's then these graphical icons that become available as you're drilling down. So again, this is a 25 year on the market tool, and so there's lots of embedded tabs and right clicks, and so you're encouraged to look at those areas. And then these will remain open, right? So as you double click on these, now I have this tab open in my Oracle environment, this tab open in my SQL Server environment. They might get a little busy, so you can close some of these down very easily. Okay, so let's keep moving here. Obviously the navigation tree, drilling into objects, and then of course as you drill into objects, you have object management options, right? So when we were looking at the object list here, you can right click and you have object create, alter, drop from the list of objects, or again drill into the objects, and then you have a list of actions you can perform on your object depending on the object, right? So here I'm on tables, I see create, open, drop, migrate, edit, build query, right? So depending on what type of object I was on, you have debugging of stored procedures, for example, right? So depending on which object type you're looking at, you'll have different benefits there, right? So if I maybe was drilling into, say, SQL Server environment, and maybe I had some procedure code here, then I'd be able to say right click or step into code graphically in a debug or code review menu. So some of those coding features go deeper in, say, Rapid SQL, where there's something called the code workbench, and you have different developer-centric areas and some other tools in the Power Studio bundle. Okay, so let's keep moving here. Time will go quickly. And so here, another core area that users would be interested in is just executing SQL, right? And so the iSQL editor is your SQL editor, right? The interactive SQL window. So that's called the SQL editor in many tools, or iSQL. And so here I could just click on File, New, Open, and this would open up a new tab where I could just start typing code, and you'd expect that in a tool like DBArtisan. Here I could just open an existing SQL statement from somewhere, and then just click the green run arrow and run that, and then bring back my results tab. And so easy ways of executing one or multiple SQL statements, getting back results, and then again taking action on those. And then for perhaps a DBA that has a little more experience in terms of optimizing SQL, here's the query plan. And so we can show the execution plan or explain plan, right? Show plan in Sybase in many different ways. And so that's just an option to select. And then here's the query plan. And then these are ways that a DBA would be able to dive into optimization and improving performance of poor performance SQL statements, or looking at the cost of SQL statements. And then there's other, there's other tools that some of us are familiar with to rewrite and optimize SQL. But for the scope of today, we'll be focused on areas within DBArtisan. Okay, and then just keeping an eye on our list here. We started just introducing the user interface. Now we're diving into the tree. And so now that we're familiar with open up a SQL editor and navigating the Explorer tree, let's talk a little bit more about the analyst drill downs that we had mentioned. So these are some powerful areas that you can get to in different ways, right? So here within the navigation tree, notice I was drilling to databases to get to the database objects. But then here, performance and analyst, these are advanced areas, right? And so I mentioned there's dynamic menus here, right? So if I was in SQL Server and click Browse, notice those are all SQL Server specific objects, right? So if I had switched this to say Oracle and then click Browse, notice those are all Oracle specific objects, right? And so you have that flexibility or dynamic menu so you realize. And then when you highlight the database just at the high level, you pop to this performance overview page. And so for Oracle, you see the SGA configuration, and then where you would go from here are these performance or analyst drill downs, right? And so when DBAs are looking at performance and resources, you can see here monitor, right? And so then these are areas in the utilities menu that are expanded database monitor, right? So monitor. So this will take you into the performance drill down, and then you'll be able to see, bottleneck activity and this graphical drill downs. And then we'll talk about the analyst drill downs. And so here you can see a number of different tabs. I have and a little bit of a sandbox, so we'll let this catch up here for a second. But here we have the capacity drill downs, the performance drill downs, and the analyst drill downs. And so a little bit of a busy screen here, but notice when the performance tree populates in Oracle, there's all of these areas to look at, right? And so obviously Oracle has a bit of a footprint, and so there's a lot of areas to drill down into here in an Oracle example. And that's from switching over here, and it jumped to that area in Oracle. If I was to switch in the tree to say SQL Server, then you'd see that list for SQL Server. And so depending on the platform, you can see we do quite a bit for Oracle, and that's probably our largest user base of DBArtisan. Okay, but then from here, I could drill into locks in my SQL Server environment, and then that would populate on the right, for example, and I could see a lock or bottleneck and terminate a session, for example. Okay, so then the other area that's more specific to DBArtisan and very popular and powerful are the analysts drill downs. And so these do have a bit of management in terms of these are areas that are your, say, critical applications that you'll be taking a closer look at. And so you can drill down into these different environments depending where you have them set up. And you'll see this similar capacity, performance, space analyst drill down capability. And so you'll need to connect that the first time for that to be populated, and then you'll see these capabilities here. So the capacity analysts, that has some wizards that you can step through. You can create a collection wizard, and then it forecasts capacity. So we won't focus on that analyst drill down as much today, but the performance drill down and the space analyst drill down, these are really critical areas for, say, an Oracle DBA or SQL Server DBA. So there's a lot going on here. Maybe I'll just mouse over some areas, but you can see here you have, the home page here, and then the different drill down pages, right? So memory, IO, space, objects, users. Here's Oracle Rack, and then these are also active drill down areas as well. So there's quite a bit going on here. Here's bottleneck analysis, problem table spaces, object bottlenecks. Right, so this is what we mean by easily find, right? This can be very difficult in Oracle, for example, without having these performance packs from Oracle set up that you pay for and have to go through learning that UI, and that's the benefit and the value of a tool like DBArtisan, where it's tried and true, proven technology. You know where to find things. You can find things quickly and resolve bottlenecks. So look for some more, maybe detailed videos on these drill down areas, but obviously very vibrant interface areas you can drill down into. And this is the performance page for Oracle. Here, the space analyst page for Oracle. Again, you can see storage graphs, different ways of viewing those. And then again, some of these icons are getting a little bit tiny, but on the bottom portion of the screen, you see we're on the database overview tab. Here's data files, here's table space map for fragmentation. That can always be helpful and vibrant and popular to look at. And so hopefully you're getting a feel here for where DBArtisan brings value more than just an object browser, but really helping you, easily find problems and then resolve them, right? Get ahead of them. All right, so the migration wizards are very popular. And again, depending on if you're in a maybe production DBA or more of a development DBA, you might benefit from some of these utilities in different ways. Also with the dynamic menus, yeah, this is interesting, right? So here we're on the space analyst menu. Now notice that it's its own new menu, right? If I was back here on the performance analysts, now that's its own new menu. So these are neat areas that I'm even finding new areas that are bring value and show how much development's gone on in these products. So just keep an eye on that, what we call the dynamic menus. But what I wanted to point out now in the last few minutes that we have here are some of the utilities, right? And so the schema extraction, schema migration, schema publication, these are easy wizard utilities that we'll maybe just kick off just to show. So if you need to say just document or back up your code, right? You need a DDL script or a schema script. So the schema extraction wizard, very easy. You can step through, it numbers the steps here. So step 1 through 7 in terms of the schema extraction wizard. You can point to an existing one. So that's some of the time saving I mentioned earlier. But here, just as you expect, a nice simple user interface. Choose your databases, right? Or choose your schemas in Oracle, choose your objects. And then you can build or extract, right? So that's an example of the schema extraction wizard. Schema migration wizard, right? If you're not just extracting for scripting purposes, but you actually then deploying that or building that. So that would be similar, but schema migration would choose where you're starting from, where's your target. And so that's another helpful utility wizard. And then documentation, right? That's always important, right? Maybe you're just starting in this environment and you need to just see what's out there. So the schema publication wizard will step through creating an HTML report on all these objects and then allow you to post that or share that, right? So someone can just double click on a URL and easily get to see what's out there without having to ask, right? Or, you know, sometimes these servers are a big black box and we don't know what's there. How about documenting it with the schema publication wizard? Okay, so these wizard utilities are helpful. And then, you know, again, notice how some of these change, right? So here I'm in SQL Server, where there's something called a database manager, right? So that's for creating your databases, right? But if I switch to, say, Oracle, then you know, the utility wizard might be different, right? So if I was, you know, pointing to an Oracle environment here, now the utility list, there is no database manager, right? But we have data pump import export for Oracle, right? And that's Oracle specific, right? So there's an example of just the depth of DBArtisan in one platform for another and the dynamic menus. Okay, and then the other area we wanted to mention before we finished here today is security, users and grants and roles and privileges, right? And so, of course, you know, those are in the schema extraction wizards, right, where you can extract those areas as well. But just within the navigation tree is really what we wanted to point out here, right? So drill down into the security and say SQL Server. There you see your logins, server roles. Click on that parent level, and you'll see that list there, right? So I could highlight that, and then here's my logins in SQL Server. Double click on my logins, and again, there's the object properties tab and the DDL view and the create and drop and extract, right? So that open up its own tab. You can close that, you know, get back to where you were exploring, right? And then so for Oracle or other platforms, perhaps similar, right? So in Oracle security, now I say my profiles, roles, users, right? So if I wanted to drill into my users in Oracle and see the list of users, right? And then here I could just right click on a user and you have object management that way. So you can see it's a very powerful tool, DBArtisan, a lot of time saving, but there is a user interface adoption, right? Learning where windows open. Now you can see how many tabs I have open, right? So here's a drop down that helps you manage bouncing back and forth. But just think of the time saving of all the areas we were looking at here within this 30 minutes we had together, all in one tool, right? And so that's powerful, right? That's value. Time is money, right? If DBArtisan saves you 15 minutes every day, that's what, 2 hours a week, right? Or hour plus a week, hour and a half a week, maybe 2 hours every 2 weeks, or half a day every month. You know, that adds up to weeks and weeks worth of time back given to you, right? Or if you have maybe more junior DBA and we're all limited on resources, this is the type of tool that can be given to them to help them grow to become a more experienced DBA. And then of course these days are a little bit unique, and there's more and more demand for the IDERA tools, client tools that allow you to work from home, but still accomplish your job and actually probably take on more responsibilities because again we're all working with limited resources. So that's where tools like this are great. Again, you can download these, all have trial windows, so you can use these for 2 weeks, 14 days usually the default. It'll pretty much look like you saw here, except I moved the tabs to the top portion. So visit the options, tools options, and that'll allow you to customize the look and feel of DBArtisan for yourself. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining. Again, this is a reoccurring webcast, either monthly, bi-monthly. We mentioned that DBArtisan is part of a bundle, and so look for more DBArtisan smaller webcast or targeted perhaps, and then for the other tools in Power Studio, which is Rapid SQL is very, very similar, but DB Optimizer and DB Change Manager, those round out the DBArtisan Power Studio bundle. Okay, thanks everybody for joining. Good luck with DBArtisan.